All right, everybody. Welcome to Trinity Garden, part 2 of how and when Cashmere Garden and Trinity Garden was annexed into Houston in 1940. Now, as we go down here, which is one of the busiest streets in Trinity Garden, was called Hirsch Road. One of the busiest streets out here, where a lot of clubs and stuff was out here, was called Bennington. But like I say, we going back to the 1940s and the early 1950s, where all of these lots out here was considered deep lots, and they had their own garden. Okay, and you're talking about some of the best watermelons in the state of Texas was grown right out here in Trinity Garden. This is history, people. And y'all say y'all love this history. I want to thank each and every one of y'all for all y'all support. But look at these lots and you can see why they had gardens in back here. Look how deep these lots are. See how deep these lots? Because all these people moved out here and had their own garden. They didn't have to go to the store to buy nothing. Only time they went was to the packing company to buy meat from Freedom Packing Company and to buy sausage up there on Jensen Drive. But look how deep these lots are. See, everybody around here, when you want to get the good watermelons and get the fresh mustard greens and the fresh collard green and turnip green, you came out here to Trinity Garden. And right now we're going down one of their busiest streets, which was called Hirsch. And I will show you where Trinity Garden is just like Cashmere Garden. When Houston annexed it, one side was called Trinity Garden and the other side was part of Houston, Texas before 1940. But before 1940, this was a prayer right here where Interstate 59 is today. And this prayer would separate the blacks that lived in Trinity Garden and the blacks that lived in Fifth Ward. We want to go down Bennington, man, because you had all the clubs that was up and down Bennington. You had Club de Lisa, Club Magnavox. All of that was up and down Jensen here. I mean Bennington. And as we go down Bennington, we will show you what Bennington would run into Jensen. And blacks were staying in Trinity Garden and whites were staying in Cashmere Garden. And one thing about it, they all worked together. People in Cashmere Garden would come out here to Trinity Garden, especially to get their watermelons. And people in Trinity Garden would go to Cashmere Garden to get fruit, such as your peaches, your plums, and they grew their own figs out here. A lot of people don't remember figs. And a lot of things too that they had over here that Cashmere Garden didn't have. They had places where they could go pick berries at, because they had the woods on the other side of Trinity Garden, which later became Scenic Woods. But all up in here was blacks, and always been blacks, and always been their own little town called Trinity, Texas, which was part of the Garden towns, and it always became Trinity Garden. And if you want to be technical about it, it was always called Trinity Garden, Texas, if you wanted to look it up during them days. But it wasn't big enough for a city. That's why Houston annexed it in 1940. They annexed it out here in 1940 because these blacks and the whites wanted to have the city benefits. That means the water, the trash, and because all out here they had outhouses, yeah. Now they didn't have no toilets like we got today. Out here they had wood out here, because see, you didn't have no electrical stove and gas stove. Everybody cooked on wood. And when they wanted to get warm, they used wood. All right, we're turning on Shreveport, and we're going right here on Bennington. And right over there was, they built the first senior high school out here on the north side for Cashmere Garden and Trinity Garden. But they kept the name Cashmere High School. But they took the garden off of it because Cashmere is the only school in HISD is not named after individual, it's named after a community. And since this is not in Cashmere Garden community, so they just dropped the garden and called it Cashmere Senior High School. Welcome to Cashmere Senior High School, the homes of the Rams. Now this is a lot. See how deep that lot is back there? Look at it. See, because they own a garden back there. And some of them had it big enough where they had their own chickens and had chicken coops where they raised their own chickens back there. Some of them lot was so big they could have chickens and have a cow back there. So they could take it to the slaughterhouse up there on Jensen Drive to get it slaughtered and get it cut and get it wrapped. That's what Freeman Brothers did for the blacks out here in Trinity Garden. So they would have meat, especially when they start having electricity out here and start having freezers where they could freeze their meat up. But before then, they would get their meat cut up, and Freeman Brothers up on Jensen that I showed you would cut it up, and they would always put it on ice. See, ice and wood was a big thing in the 30s and the 40s because you didn't have electric stove and electric refrigerators. You kept your stuff cool on ice. You kept warm and you cooked on wood. That's real history. And young blacks need to always cherish this because we weren't always brought up with electric stove and electric heaters and central air and central heating. We didn't have all of that. Now this is Cashmere High School. And they built, this is Cashmere Senior High School. We showed you the original Cashmere, which is key. Now, but this is the school, and like I said, they did not call it Cashmere Garden School. Because, see, as you can see how deep those lots are back there? That lets you know that all they did back here, now this is a lot here. See how wide and how deep that lot is? Because all of these lots was built around gardens. When they built homes, they wanted to have a garden in the back of their home. And that's why these lots are so big, and that's why they call it Trinity Garden, because they was known for having big gardens in the back of their houses. And I'd like to thank a lot of people. We're right here up in Cashmere High School, and I cannot thank enough to thank Mr. Keith Dowling. And we'll turn right up into Key. You see, I'm still calling it Key, but the name of it is Cashmere High School. And I'd like to thank Mr. Keith Dowling and also the school board representative over here for Cashmere, Miss Rhonda Skilling Jones, for all the work that they do up here for Cashmere High School. And also I'd like to thank Mr. Keith Dowling for all the work that he do for the Cashmere and Trinity Garden community. Thank you, Mr. Keith Dowling, and I hope one day that we'll get together and we can sit down and talk about all the things and the future that you got for Cashmere Garden and also for Trinity Garden and Cashmere High School and the feeder program that you started that have been so successful to help Cashmere keep this school open and help HISD keep this school open for blacks. And not only for blacks, for the whole community of Cashmere Garden and Trinity Garden. Thank you so much, Mr. Keith Dowling, for all the work you're doing. We see it and we appreciate it. And right up here on this corner here, we're going to go back in the 60s here. Something that people can recognize. Back here on the 60s here, this was a grocery store called D-Light. D-Light was a real famous grocery store. And then up here on Denmark and Hirsch Road was another major grocery store that was called ABC. But during the 40s and the 50s, these people did not use these grocery stores. They didn't start using these grocery stores until the early 60s. Because in the 40s, on back in the 30s, these people out here raised their own vegetables. They even had beans out here. They even raised sweet potatoes. See, and up here on this corner was Denmark. On Denmark was ABC, and a little bit further down Denmark was a rest home and also a famous place called Bruno's. And for you people who know about Trinity Garden, y'all heard of Bruno's. And we're gonna go up here to Tidwell, and we're gonna go on in and call it a day after Tidwell. No, we're gonna go down Tidwell and show you where they used to hunt at back here in Trinity Garden. They would even hunt deers out here. That's right, deers would be out here in Trinity Garden. But it was on the other side of Trinity Garden, which was woods. This way before they discovered and developed scenic woods. As you can see, all back off in here, they still got woods. But back in the day, it was nothing but woods. It was just like that. This street did not go through. No. Only thing that went through was that railroad track over there. That was the only thing went through. All back in here was woods. And they would come out here hunting in Trinity Garden. Hunting. That's right, they would go hunting. They would go out here, you would catch some deers out here. You would catch some possum. A bunch of rabbits was out here. All back off in here was nothing but woods. And we're gonna go down straight on down here. Like I said, all of this was dead end. What we got right now, you couldn't go down here. This street, Hirsch Road, would not go this far. Only thing that went this far was the railroad track. And that's where a lot of people would go out there hunting. You can still see they still got woods out here. This is when scenic wood was born off of a Trinity Garden. That's right. It was no scenic wood. It was Trinity Garden and the people out here in Trinity Garden. They used to hunt out here in these woods that they so-called, the white folks moved out here and called it scenic wood in the 50s. But by the time the late 60s came around, those white folks were moving out of scenic wood and blacks were moving into scenic wood. All right, everybody. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Mr. Greg Walker and the Bank of Repossession for being able to sponsor all of these videos that you have been looking at on YouTube and Facebook. Thanks to Mr. Greg Walker and his company, which is called Bank of Repossession. And what they do here at Bank of Repossession, and Mr. Greg Walker is the general manager of Bank of Repossession. And Mr. Walker, just tell us a little bit about the Bank of Repossession. We know these cars are repossession cars, and we know when y'all pick these cars up, y'all go through the format of getting them detailed and checked out and put on the computer to make sure they are eligible to be sold. Is that right?
That's correct. We do a 21-point check. We check the engine, the transmission, make sure the tires are good, no lights on the dash, so make sure everything is working properly.